Hello, YouTube. My name is Harper, and today I am going to teach you how to do my job as much as I can. Um, what my job is, I work from home. I am a concrete estimator for a local concrete company. What that entails is reading plans from my home and preparing proposals for local general contractors or just for private business deals where they just need our concrete between us and them. Um, so yeah, essentially, because there's not much interest in this field from the younger age group, I just thought that I would kind of give some insight into what it looks like to be a remote worker in this field that's pretty young and has experience in other fields, but also enjoys this and thinks that other people would too if they knew more about it. So, with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and jump into it. I've prepared a couple of scenes just so you guys can kind of get some hands on experience because that's how I learn best. So, um, if you guys are interested in estimating concrete construction costs, this is going to go over concrete specifically, but it has ideas and premises that work with all types of estimating. So that could apply with HVAC, it could apply with masonry, it could apply with really anything where you're taking off square footages or counting things and saying, hey, that this many of that thing is going to cost my company this much to do it. So, um, but starting off first, the first and most important thing, if you're trying to break into this field or make money in this field, is to know how to read a set of plans. That in and of itself is kind of a difficult task just because there's a lot of different uh, construction divisions. And so there's a lot of different expertise that goes into these plans. So you're never really going to understand every piece of every page. Uh, but I have experiences in general contracting, and so I've had to understand at least a little bit about every page. And I can say that working as a subcontractor or in a specific specialized field like masonry or concrete or something like that, you're going to have a much easier time with plans because you're usually only focused on a section of sheets or a couple of different sections of sheets, never really every single page on the plan. So that's kind of nice. But getting started on like reading plans and like what we're looking for in concrete, generally I am looking, the first place I'm looking is civil sheets, the C sheets, if you will, which usually includes something like existing conditions, which shows us how the project is right now before we touch it. It's usually a bird's eye view with lines and, drawings indicating what different pieces are. I'm gonna go ahead and switch over to that now so that you guys can see. So this is an existing conditions page. This is kind of an idea of what a site would look like. You have a parking area right here. You can see the lines, the islands. You have something right here. This looks like a cutout section. And then we have the diagonal lines going that way, and then another section over here, diagonal lines, diagonal lines. I'm not going to get into all of this and what it means. Existing conditions, we just want to look at it, kind of know what the project looks like before we move on or try to start figuring out how much concrete or what's going on this. The next page you're going to see is the demolition plan, which is notifying you of everything that's actually getting removed or if you're doing demo. So for my company specifically, we don't do demolition. I could take it off, but we don't really do it. Our guys are more come in and pour concrete and leave. So usually general contractors will pick this stuff up if they have general labor. Um, but it'll include stuff like saw cutting the existing concrete, where whatever, like they're going to pour something new back. So it's always good to look at the demolition plan because it gives you an idea of where the putback is going to go, where we're actually going to be doing our work. Because the next page usually is going to be the site plan, which this is a site plan. Um, so the site plan has a legend over here that is showing us the proposed heavy duty asphalt paving, the proposed concrete sidewalk, and then proposed dumpster pad. So we're going to go ahead and line that up, the sidewalk with this whole area right here. that going down there, and you can clearly see where it cuts off and where it picks up, and then it picks up again right here, all this in here, and then we have this little gray area, which is our pad area. That's the dumpster pad. And if you'll notice these little circles right here, these are usually bollards, concrete bollards, which we also will be picking up. This is just kind of a generic site plan. We're not going into, super hardcore, ton of curb and gutter and islands and stuff. But this just kind of gives you an idea of like reading sidewalk and concrete and what it usually looks like. It's always, you know, notated as this with the little triangles with the dotted specks throughout it. That's always how you'll see concrete on plans. So that kind of takes us into civil just to look at stuff. My next talking point um, the actual software, the takeoff softwares that you can use for this. There's a lot of different options. One of the main ones that I used for general contracting, we used PlanSwift. It had a lot of different options, a lot of different functionality. Bluebeam is very similar. Review, it's also a good software. Um, but yeah, so the takeoff software is you kind of can't go wrong. Just depending on what your company wants to pay or what you want to pay, depending on like what kind of functionality you need or how much you're going to use, how much you want to learn this software, because it's like anything, you can spend forever learning it and then only use 10% of the power that it has. So it's really just kind of user preference. I would just watch videos on both softwares and say, which user interface do I like better? Which one do I think flows better? And then kind of choose from there. But just pick one, go with it, get strong in it, and then stick with it. It's kind of my advice. But you do whatever you want. Um, so yeah, I'm in Bluebeam Review, which it's very simple, very straightforward. One thing that I will go over is just the importance of scales in plans. Um, I'm gonna switch back to this just to show you. Uh, so that right there is like one of the most important things you're gonna find on a set of plans. Um, and in this, I actually just set it. I can set preset scales, which is really nice. So I'm gonna set that to be 1 inch equals 10 foot. What that's basically saying is that if this was an actual printed out sheet of plans, I would have an actual scale, an architect scale or an engineer scale, and one physical inch, one literal inch would equal 10 foot in real life, to scale. That's essentially what a scale is. That's how it works. So what we do is we set our scale, and with modern technology, the ease of access is I get to draw a little area button. I click this area button up here that says, "Hey, I want to take off a square, or I want to take off this section of something." So I got my concrete sidewalk, and I'm just gonna draw. I'm gonna draw. I'm gonna draw. And what's funny is that you don't have to be super super precise. If there's like a little square that gets picked up and you didn't mean to, you'll get pretty good at figuring out the numbers and what they're going to look like and what it actually should be. Um, but yeah, essentially I'm just drawing every point to connect this and make it one solid piece. And then I'm going to do that everywhere that I possibly can on this page where I see concrete. I'm not going to do that for this one, but I am going to show you this one. For this section of concrete, I'm going to tell you how much square foot it is. Okay, so for that section of concrete that I just drew the area of, it is 1,600 square feet of concrete. That's what that says right there, 1,600. So with my job, what I do then, just to show you how easy it is I take that number, and then because I know that this sidewalk is 4 inches thick, it usually is for walking sidewalk, but I've looked at the other sheets of this plan beforehand. So this is 4 inches thick, so I know exactly how much per square foot my price is for labor and material to put in 4 inch thick sidewalk. So I would just take that square foot number, throw it in a proposal line item, and then apply my number to it. That is the easiest way to take off sidewalk. That is the probably not the most accurate way to do it. The most accurate way to do it, in my opinion, would be to take off your actual linear footages. So like for instance, this right here, that right there, just that line alone, that is 112 feet, 112 linear feet from there all the way around to there. So that, just to give you an idea, I would take off 112 linear feet. I would divide it by 10 to get um, how many 2 by 10s or 2 by 8s, divided by 8, just to figure out how many form boards I'm gonna need. And then I would do that many form boards time the cost of the going rate of a form board at Home Depot or Lowe's. So that's going to be a more specific way of, taking off what it costs to pour. But then if you do enough estimates, you kind of start figuring out, oh, my price on this kind of job was this much a square foot. It's like, okay, on this job with this scale, scale being used in a different sense right there, being talking about like the scale of the project, like how big it is. Is it $1 million? Is it $5,000? Is it $15,000 total? It's like depending on that total, that's going to affect what that square foot cost is. Because if I'm a big company, I'm not going to go do $7,000 worth of work for $7,000. Like it's going to end up being 10 or 12 because of my resources, and I'm having to allocate things to that is taking away from my big jobs, and so it costs more. But that's just that me going through that and just taking that off kind of shows you pretty much exactly what I do for the majority of my day. When I'm looking at plans and I'm taking things off, this is what I'm doing. I'm drawing shapes, I'm reading square footages, I'm adding those square footages together, I'm putting them in a Word document, and then I'm doing that for linear foot of curb and gutter. I'm doing that for dumpster pads. I'm doing it for bollards. I'm counting how many bollards. I'm counting how many footings. I'll get to that. We're actually going to go to that right now. Um, After this, this is the detail sheet for the civil sheet. So this is usually where you're going to see bollard details that tell you how thick they are. So a 6-inch thick bollard, and then tells you how far on the ground your bollard footing is going to go. That just gives you some more details. And then the dumpster pad detail, it's another thing good to have. Shows you a CMU wall right there, so you know there's going to be a footing under it. It's usually going to be a 2x1 footing. And then I'll go over footings and pricing footings in just a little bit. But then, yeah, those what I showed you guys earlier, that those are those bollards that we saw. And then here's an actual detail showing the concrete dumpster pad, and it tells us it's 6 inches thick. That's what that shows right there. 4,500 psi. 4,000 is pretty standard psi, but for the thicker dumpster pad, you're definitely going to want the higher psi. And then that WWM right there, that just stands for welded wire mesh. Um, there are different options for reinforcing concrete. When you pour it, you have different number, thicknesses, diameters of rebar that go into concrete to reinforce it, make it stronger, tie it together. Essentially, is what you're doing. But then, yeah, you also have these WWMs, these welded wire mesh, sheets that you kind of lay in it, which accomplish a similar function as rebar. But I believe it's cheaper. If I am correct, I'm not 100% sure. I also haven't been doing this forever, so don't just like take every word I'm saying like, oh, this guy knows everything. It's like, no, I have no clue. Like I am giving you basics, just to show you it's doable, it's understandable, it's not that hard. Detail monolithic sidewalk and curb. Monolithic just means single pour. I guess a polylithic would mean multi-pour, but that monolithic just means that I'm pouring the sidewalk and the curb at one time in one pour. I'm not pouring the sidewalk, forming it up separately, and then coming back and pouring the curb later. I'm doing both of them at once. So the forming will actually go to the edge of the curb, not the edge of the sidewalk. That's just kind of an interesting thing. Um, but then, yeah, on monolithic curb and sidewalk, uh, curb, we take off very similarly to sidewalk. We just do linear foot instead of square foot, and then we charge it per linear foot. Um, and you can kind of look up online what in your area, what thickness of curb, because you got 612, 618, 630. 630 is the commercial, heavy grade street curb. That's what you're going to see. And then you got like parking lot, standard parking lot, business parking lot, 612, 618 curb, vertical curb, flush curb. They don't vary like super, super crazy in price. So I'm not going to get too hard into curb. And then we have our concrete sidewalk detail right here, which is also always good to look at. They're telling us they want WWF, which is welded wire fabric, very similar to welded wire mesh. I believe that one just gets sprinkled in. I'm not 100% sure. Once again, I work from home. Um, but yeah, you basically just get an idea of what that sidewalk's supposed to look like, how thick it's going to be, and then also if they need oh, also the finish is important. They want broom finish here. If it's like a washed aggregate finish, sometimes that can cost a little bit more per square foot. Um, but we're also looking to see if they need 4 inches of sub fill. If they need 4 inches of CR610 gravel, stone, something to put under. If we're cutting that under part out and then filling with 4 inches of something before they pour the sidewalk. That's not standard with sidewalks. That is standard with foundations and slabs and things like that. Maybe dumpster pads, but it's if it's in there, they need it. If it's not, it usually means compacted subgrade, which means that you're gonna dig up a little bit. You're gonna compact subgrade, which the subgrade is just the dirt underneath it. So you're gonna compact that, and then you're gonna pour your sidewalk right on top of it. So you just want to be aware of that because obviously having 4 inches of gravel over how many square feet of sidewalk you're putting in, that can add up. So we want to make sure we cover everything. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and jump. We're gonna skip that. And so this is like one of the first early sheets. There's going to be 2 or 3 early sheets of general notes and general specifics about. So we're in structural sheets now. This is the other set of sheets that we look at. We look at civil sheets, we look at structural sheets. Um, so in this first couple of sheets, sometimes you'll find the foundation schedule, which is going to show you footings, sizes, that kind of stuff, which is really key information to have whenever we're taking off a slab because we're not just taking off the square foot of the slab and then throwing a square foot number on it. We have to figure out what kind of footings are underneath it, how many linear foot of continuous footing there is, how many spread footings there are, what thickness they are, what their dimensions are, because you can end up getting a bunch of cubic yards in footings very quickly, and you can bust a job if you're not paying attention to the thicknesses and that stuff. So these right here are kind of what we're going to be looking at just whenever we start looking at the slab and taking off the foundation. So we can see here that we got an F66, which is a 5.5 foot by 5.5 foot by 2 foot thick. So those are some big boys. Those are some spread footings that are pretty big. These right here, that cont right there, that length cont continuous is what it stands for. The W36, so that is a continuous footing, which means it runs the length of a wall or it runs the length of whatever. So we're going to take the linear foot off, the linear feet off of those. But it is important that we know that those are 3 by 1 foot 3 inches. And then the W40s, which is the same premise, wall footings, straight, continuous. They're going to go for a while. We're just going to take off the linear foot and then have those two, the width and the thickness, and we're going to multiply those. So essentially, just to give you an idea of what we would do here, I've got my calculator up, but I can't show it on the screen. But I would do 5.5 times 5.5 times 5.5 times 2, which gives me 60.5. And then I would divide that by 27 because we're trying to get cubic yards out of this. And we were going from square feet, or we're going from cubic feet to cubic yards. So we divide by 27, we get 2.2, and we're going to times that by 1.2 because we always factor in 20% for waste when you're dealing with concrete. So that would give us 2.68. And we always round up because they don't sell cubic yards in fractions. So if it's 2.68 cubic yards, it's now 3 cubic yards. So we know that for each of these F66, it's going to be 3 cubic yards. So we can count those up and just multiply it by 3. That's how many cubic yards it costs to pour the F66. And that's how we do that. And then for the continuous footings, we would find the linear feet of how long those are, And then we multiply those out, divide by 27, do the same thing times 1.2. That gives us waste. Um, and that would be how we figure that stuff. And then just so you can get a look at a foundation sheet and what they look like if it'll load. This is what a foundation plan will look like. Sometimes, most times, it'll have the scale right under it, which is really nice. Um, and then you're gonna have it can get a little confusing because there's a lot of lines, but it'll have this general outline that you'll kind of be able to follow if you can see my mouse. But that is generally the outline that we would follow if we were taking off this slab right now. So I would draw the line down to there. I would take it up to here. No, I'd take it up to here, and then I'd go up to there, and then down to here, and then I would go over to here. And then this looks like it's a ramp, so I would just keep going over here. And then I would drop down here, come over here, and then finish it up right there. I wouldn't include that part because it looks like it's just a footing or a retaining wall or some sort. But yeah, this is nice. It points out that this area right here is the 4-inch thick exterior sidewalk and C-civil. That means we've already got it picked up. And then, yeah, right here, the 6-inch thick concrete planter wall. That is something that we would pick up. I didn't include it in the slab, but we could do a linear foot takeoff, figure out the height, the width, all the, thickness of that thing, and then take off how much concrete's in it and what it would cost for our guys to do it. And this is obviously another example of that. This the 8-inch thick retaining walls, C-civil for the specifics. But yeah, we would just take off the linear foot, figure out thickness, height, all that stuff. I'm looking for a line where it tells me how thick this slab is. And if we, right there, 4-inch thick interior concrete slab on grade, reinforced with welded wire fabric. So what that means is that it's slab on grade. It does not mention fill. It doesn't mention granular fill, so we wouldn't figure that. But sometimes in these foundation notes, they will include something. Interior concrete right here, 6-inch thick, number 57 stone, topped with 10 mil poly vapor barrier. So that is 6 inches thick for interior concrete that they're looking for. They want it for both. So we actually would, we wouldn't figure it for the exterior concrete because they didn't show it in the detail. But for the interior concrete for the slab, we would figure 6 inches thick of granular fill. And the 10 mil poly vapor, the 10 milliliter poly vapor barrier, that is just standard on pouring interior slabs. That's just an additional moisture control that you always do, at least in America, on slabs. So that's a general foundation plan. I don't know everything that I've covered. I don't have the best lineup for this. I do have one more switch to do. Okay, so we're here now. So this is a sidewalk getting poured. So they have already formed it up. You can see the 2x4s. They've got their stakes in, which are supporting the 2x4s, keeping them in place. And they are now dumping concrete out of that truck. And he is using he's using something. He's using a tool to pull it into place so they can leave it and harden it up. Looks like that's just dirt. But yeah, essentially they're going to spread it out. This is just to go over kind of what concrete looks like whenever you're pouring it and what the process is. But yeah, you're generally just, it's a liquid. You're trying to have it fill the glass. You are filling the glass with it, but it also takes a lot of backbreaking work because you're using a 2x4 to generally get it level, and then you're going back over it with floats and these pulling tools to just level it back out. You're taking shovel fills and filling it back up, filling in holes that you find. It's very, very dedicated work. But you can see how it will start to, you see they're throwing stuff into these little sections. Somebody will sometimes come and pour water on it to make sure it's staying moist and not hardening too fast. Like it's a whole dang process. But this is what we're pricing. This is what we're figuring out how to price. So it's a good idea to see it in action to get an idea of how long it takes, what the process is like how tired are these guys going to be after doing 100 square feet of this, 500 square feet of this, how much can they do in a day, how much can they do in a week if they're tired. So there's just a lot to consider, and you don't want to, you don't want to undersell yourself. You want to know what labor costs, and you want to know what materials cost so that you're not screwing over your company, or if it's you, if you're working for yourself, you don't want to screw over yourself. But yeah, they get that looking real nice, and then they're gonna bull float it. And this is a process of just getting that nice flat finish over it right there at the end. Then you got guys with edgers that have come through and edged the concrete off of the 2x4 to make sure that it's, gonna harden as one piece, and that those forms can just break right off the next day or after it hardens. He's going back through, he's floating specific areas. Guy with the bull float's still gonna hit that. They got the small edger trying to clean up that dirty spot right there. But he's gonna come back with the big edger, and he's gonna fix all that up. It's a team process. It's a whole process. It's beautiful, really. Look at that. Look at how nice that looks. He's got the big edger. Oh yeah. Yeah, float that. And then this guy's coming through, yep, with the, oh dude. Man, look at those. Look at those control joints right there. Expansion joints, sorry. Not control joints. Expansion joints. Man, that looks good. I'm ready to see the finished product. Wonder if they're doing a broom finish on this. They got me curious now. Tell you what, these guys putting in the work. It looks good, fellas. Yeah, they did. That's a broom finish. That looks nice. Okay, well that kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like to pour concrete. I gotta do something. Deactivate that. Activate that. Okay. We're back to the list. So we've read plans. We didn't go over curb and gutter. We went over foundations, pads, bollards. Bollards was simple. We went over footings a little bit. I didn't show you. I kind of showed you what the boxes were. Um, we went over the takeoff softwares and just kind of what they do. Very, very short, very simple. Learning addendums and alternates slash specs. So we're gonna keep this one really short too. We're gonna keep this stuff simple, just not to overcomplicate things or speak out of turn. Addendums are documents that are released after the initial invitation to bid has been sent out for a project. So an addendum is something where the architect or the owner or a general contractor might say, "Hey, Mr. Architect, like this in the plans doesn't make sense, or in reality, it's not going to work. So you need to change that." Or maybe there's a text in the original specs that say you have 120 days to finish this work if you're given the notice to proceed. But a general contractor might say, no, that's going to take us, a lot longer. That's going to take us 280 days, and so they would reach back out to the architect or the owner and say, hey, this needs to be changed. Like that's not reasonable. It's not realistic. Or, say that there's materials that are requested. There's a specific canopy that the owner wants to go on this project, and that specific canopy is out of stock. It's been out of stock for the last 3 years, and it'll take 5 years to get it. So you would reach out to the architect and say, "Hey, man, you need to take that out of your specs. Like, we're not going to be able to get that for 5 years. Like, obviously, you need to tell them they need to pick a different canopy." So that's what addendums are. That's kind of how they act. They're just additional information that you need to be aware of as someone looking at projects and bidding on work, because they could very well change the division that you're working on. They could add 3,000 square foot of sidewalk that you missed, if you didn't see the addendum. So addendums are very, very important. That is something that you definitely need to keep up with. And if you see a new one come out, you need to read it immediately and see if there's anything that applies to your field of work. And then you need to ask questions and make sure that you have it adequately covered. Alternates and specs, kind of in the same ballpark. We're talking about information that you need to be aware of. Alternates, they're deductive alternates and alternates. They're basically the same thing. A deductive alternate is the owner saying, "Hey, I want you to give me a price for this work, but I want you to include it in the price, but then let me know how much it is so that I can deduct it from your price." No. Yes. Yeah. I'm gonna have to redo this. No, I'm not. I'm just gonna say it again. A deductive alternate is the owner telling you, "Hey, I might not want to do this work, but I'm asking you for a price anyway. Tell me how much it is so that I can delete it immediately if I don't like it." That's deductive alternate. Alternate is, "Hey, we might want to build a whole nother building over here on this side. Here's how many square foot. This is what it looks like. Give me a price for this too, but don't include it in your base bid price. Just include it as an alternate." And so they will take the base bid price, and then they will also take the base bid plus alternate price, and then they will compare the two of those between all the contractors and say, "Okay, if we do all this work, this guy might be cheaper. If we don't do all this work, this guy might be cheaper." So it just adds another layer. You need to be aware of it. Alternates suck. Deductive alternates suck because you just need to make sure that you include it correctly, make sure that you note it properly so that people don't get confused because it can get really confusing. Specs, super important. I'm going to go ahead and switch over. Now we're going back to the plans. And I've got a project manual clicked here. This is the most important division you're going to look at when you look at specs. Division 3, that's us, concrete. This is where you're going to find a lot of words and blank pages. So here we go. We got cast in place concrete, division 3300. Extent of the work, quality assurance, this kind of just BS. Submittals, that's something that we do after we've procured a project. We've already gotten the project. The general contractor will usually ask us for submittals, which then we request from material suppliers that just send us concrete mixes, which is a design of the concrete. And then we send that off to get an approved. That's called a submittal. That's when the architect approves the specific concrete that you say, "Hey, we're installing this kind of concrete on the project. Hope that's good, Mr. Architect." I was doing a thumbs up. And then they either say, "Yes, approved, go ahead," or they say, "No, that sucks. Give us something else. We don't like that." Which that one happens sometimes. We have form materials. This kind of stuff's going to be generic. It's just kind of like, "Hey, this is what we want you to use: plywood, lumber, metal, other accepted material." Reinforcing materials, this stuff's kind of general too. Concrete material, this is usually something to be aware of. The concrete material is important. The Portland cement, whatever, lightweight aggregates. Oh, I hope you guys didn't hear that. You definitely don't smell it, my word. And then available products, that's a really important one too. That's just kind of what your mix design guy is going to be looking at. What's good? Let's see. Concrete schedule, that's a good one. Interior footings, they want 4,000 psi non-entrained. Exterior footings, they want 4,000 psi air-entrained. Sometimes the specs and the plans will not agree with each other, and that is something that you kind of have to bring up with the architect when it comes down to it. But if I remember correctly, I want to say that the specs supersede the plans. Like if it comes down to it, it's like, well, which one do we go with? It's like I think specs are always right. I could be wrong in that. I think it might be that plans are always right, but for some reason I go specs are more legal. Specs are more document. It all looks very nice and organized and whatever. But yeah, so this is just generic. We don't spend too much time in the specs. We really just kind of want to make sure that if they want a ramp poured and it's like exposed aggregate and they want a very specific like black coloration in the specific pebbles that are in the concrete. I've seen this before. That's why it's not super crazy, but they'll have a very specific concrete mix design if you're not aware of that in the specs, it can end up costing a lot more because that mix design might be hard to get a hold of. You might have to import it from somewhere else, and so it could just cost a lot more, and you could miss that, and they could hold you to it and say, "Well, you have to do it because it's in the contract." So that's just something to be aware of. Um, Installation, slab finishes, just yeah, you don't have to read it all. It is a good idea to read a spec book at least once just to get an idea of kind of what all is in there and what pages are important. But that's kind of I think that's going to be where I leave it with specs. We're back to the list. So we got addendums, we got alternates and specs. Exclusions. I'm not going to pull up a proposal right now, but exclusions essentially are when I have a proposal and I have lined out my scope of work and I say, these are all the line items I'm picking up. Well, let's say that there's a couple of concrete inlets on the job that I'm not picking up, that I am leaving to their earthwork guy, whatever, whoever wants to do it. I'm not doing those inlets. I can put those in a line item on my proposal under exclusions, which says all of my work is the work that's included above, but I specifically am leaving out inlets so that if a general contractor says, well, this guy's got the inlets, I can say, no, no, no. Look at my proposal. It says I excluded the inlets and you knew that. So that's just something to protect you. If you're not picking something up, you can't do it. Don't do it for stuff that like you should be picking up. But if it's something specifically that you're like, no, we don't, I'm not doing that. We don't do that work. You can just exclude it. And that helps protect you so that they don't just think, oh, he's a concrete guy. He's doing all the concrete. It's like they'll lump you in with that very quickly. You don't have to do that. You don't have to put up with that. Pricing form boards. We went over that, just kind of, linear foot, splitting those up, how much it costs for each 2x12, 2x8. I don't know how long they come in, 2x16, maybe 2x216. Waste, I told you guys about that. The 20% that we figure is a waste that is not going to get put into our footings, into our slab. It's just going to get wasted. Mobilization, site layout, and pump cost. So mobilization is a line item that's going to go in our proposals on every single proposal. Mobilization is the cost of my guys to come out there and do the job. It's at the base level. It is the cost of the gas in the truck to get them there. It's the cost of the tools and equipment on their truck that they're going to use to put this stuff in. It's the cost of. It's basically just my ongoing standard cost that it costs to have these guys come and do this job for you. So that's what a mobilization costs, and you usually figure 3%, 4% of the total cost of the project is going to be what it costs for you in mobilization. You can charge higher than that, obviously, if it's a smaller job and it's like, hey, 3% of my total project is going to be $200, but like my gas is going to cost me 150 to get over there. It's like, okay, well then you should do, 700,000 bucks, like bump your mobilization up. Like that's where you can make some money. That's where you can cover your costs. Site layout, that is a cost that is associated with like bigger projects when you're doing a lot of layout on sidewalks and curb and gutter and all this stuff. Like you're going to pay a company to come out, stake it, figure out where everything's going. It's gonna cost you a little bit. That line item, you kind of figure out what it costs. Call some guy, say, hey, I got this much sidewalk I'm putting in. It's this kind of landscape. This is what the area looks like. What would it cost to have you come in, shoot it, site lay it? Pump cost is a cost that a line item that gets associated when we're doing pours that are off the beaten path, or we can't get a concrete truck to just have the slide go straight to our forms and pour like that and spread it. We're gonna have to pay for a pump truck. So you kind of figure couple grand, a little over a couple grand for the pump truck coming out there, and then figure another couple bucks per cubic yard that you're pumping. So that's just additional cost. That's just extra stuff. We're not going into all that. We're kind of just focusing on the big ones here. Um, but yeah, essentially that is kind of what I wanted to start with. There's more to it as far as building proposals, as far as making sure that your numbers are lining up, adding everything up, making sure that your labor is covered, that it's not going to cost way more to have this group of guys go out and do this, and then it throws you off. There's a lot of niche stuff that you kind of figure out by doing the work, but ultimately, this is what I do. I mean, I didn't really put the submittals and the schedule that I keep in here, but that's just kind of stuff that goes with every project or with every job. It's just the stupid paperwork stuff, and that's what that stuff is. This is the meat and potatoes. It's the reading plans, it's using takeoff softwares, it's figuring out addendums, alternate specs, figuring out exclusions, making sure I'm excluding the right stuff and including the right stuff. And then, yeah, the pricing formboards of ways to easy stuff. I might do another video where I talk about square footage breakdowns and just kind of what that looks like and how much uh, labor is included in that square foot price and how much material is included in it, just to give you a better idea of kind of what I'm pricing and how I figure my pricing and how you could, take that with wherever you live and, change it or maybe have a formula, some formulas that you could work with. Um, but yeah, I feel like I covered a lot of stuff I wanted to. I don't think I did it well, but I also think that I'm learning how to do this. I'm learning how to talk to a camera and explain what I do, but I think it'll get better with time. And I appreciate if anybody watches this, I think that's super cool. Um, if you want to do this work, I don't know why, but I'm here telling you how. So if if you want to keep learning, I'll keep going over it, keep making videos, and try to keep protecting the information on the projects that I have so that nobody gets exposed. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your day. And I hope that um, what do I hope for you? Hmm. 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 Not that. No, I don't hope that for you. I hope. I hope that someone lets you into traffic without making you feel bad about it and allowing you more than enough space to do it while it is, just glaringly obvious that they are making space for you, that there's no ill intention in their heart. They are not trying to squeeze into that person behind them. They have left a spot open for you. That is your spot. They have declared it your spot, and now you are free to move into that spot. I hope that for everyone that watches this video, they have that experience within the next couple of days, that somebody saves a spot for you in traffic when things are getting rough, things are getting slow and tight, and they do not make you feel bad about it at all. It is your spot. Um, but yeah, so if that happens for you, that's going to be awesome. But thank you guys.